welcome to the Clark Connection podcast. So great to have you on here with us. I'm your host, Aaron Clark, aka The Coach. You know me. And listen, we've got an excellent episode for you today. I'm going to have on here one of my personal coaches and mentors, Adam Merino. He is a podcasting coach, a podcaster himself. And so we're going to go through and talk about entrepreneurship on here. It's going to be awesome that even if you're looking to get started with the podcast yourself, that he's a great guy. But before we get rolling with that, I do want to give a quick shout out to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metals, Bobby with the Comfy Quest LLC, and Andrew with Automate Integrate Professional Services. All of their contact information is listed below. They hit them up if you need anything. Also, if you're looking for any coaching services, that whether it's leadership development, that personal growth development for yourself, it could be for your company, they hit me up. Would love to see how I can help you out with that. And listen, we've also been doing a secret word or secret emoji. And since we're going to be talking about podcasting, look, go ahead, leave a comment right below, drop an emoji of a microphone that as we roll that intro footage.
This is the Clark Connection Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and power. We'll dive deep into the stories and strategies that ignite personal growth and entrepreneurial fire. Join us as we empower you to take control, level up your leadership, and build the life you deserve. Get ready to rise, to thrive, and to finally become the leader of your own destiny. Let's go.
All right, welcome everyone that we've got on the show with us here today. That my podcast coach, Adam Merino of Influencer TV, entrepreneur, has had several other businesses as well. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm excited. Let's do this.
Yeah, and so I guess kind of my first question, and I've never even thought to ask even in our own coaching sessions, how does one get into podcast coaching?
Right? It's not you go to college at Liberty University and then it's not one of those things. Basically, I think in any coaching situation, this is life coaching, basketball coaching, which I've done, sports, that kind of thing. You truly have to love it at first. So I believe that's where it stems from. And so in 2016, I started podcasting with a couple buddies, and a lot like you listening right now, you may think, oh, man, I wouldn't know the first thing about starting one. I enjoy listening to them and know a little bit about, but I wouldn't know how to start. And that's exactly where I was in 2016 with 3 other buddies as well. And then a funny thing just happened that I really fell in love with that process, which is another key. You have to truly enjoy the process of what you're doing. You can't just be fixated on the end result, because the bumps in the road will detour you too much. You have to enjoy those detours and understand that that's part of it. And so I learned that the more you do, the more mistakes you're going to make. But I like to fail up. I like to fall up the stairs. If I'm going to tumble, I'm going to tumble to the next step up. I'm not going to tumble down. I make fun of my dad. He always falls up the stairs when his feet get going a little too quick, and you hear a boom. Oh, what happened? Oh, I fell up the stairs again. And, but I like that analogy because you're still moving up, even though you're falling down. And so since 2016, I've fallen a lot of times, but I loved it. I truly loved setting someone up on Spotify, helping with a YouTube channel, understanding a solid intro, understanding the call to actions. What do you want your listener to do? It took time. We didn't know that at first, but the more you do it, and again, 2016, that's kind of a long time ago, and when podcasts weren't as huge as they are now, but I truly enjoyed it. And then people started asking me, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? I'm like, well, step into my office. Let me show you, And so my first client was my dad. And then from there, kind of stemmed from other people and grew to where all of a sudden I had like 9 clients, and I'm like, just little old me. and I was selling insurance at the time. I just quit, got out of that, and do this full time where I just help people like you start, grow, and monetize. That's the idea. And so, but the key again, you truly, truly have to enjoy what you're doing, because it's a lot of late nights learning stuff on YouTube. It's a lot of early mornings, recording podcasts with clients. Hint, hint. It's doing all the fun stuff. So yeah, but you got to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think you said the key thing there and it doesn't matter what business you're in, that is enjoying the process. And that's one that I know a lot of people struggle with, is understanding that the process is what gets you to where you are. It's all about growing through it. And so, and I love that you said that your first client was your dad. Thank God for dads, because they always make the great first client.
Yeah, I could mess up a little bit and it's okay. Exactly.
Yeah. And so through the process, like, what would you say was the process? What was it that became the grind and the process that you were talking about?
So for me, it was really trying to remember the list of things that I did well and things that clicked for me in the process of creating a podcast. So you create a trailer, you create, your intro, you got to figure out your lighting, things like that. Well, the more I did those things, the more I would write stuff down and say, okay, this is not the way to do it, because you have to do this and this first. So for example, getting set up on Apple. And I remember actually doing that with you. And with you, if I remember, we didn't hit really too many snags, but in my 8 years or so of doing this, I have hit a lot of snags. And Apple is just one of those weird things where sometimes it can take up to 3 weeks to get you verified and get you on so that your podcast shows up on Apple Podcasts. And so I learned the hard way that what I would do is, I'll give you an example. In my young days of doing this, in the early years, I would announce on social media, hey, podcast coming out, check it out on Apple, Spotify, blah, blah, blah. And then I would go and try and get verified, and it would take 3 weeks, but I already told people that the show was coming out next week. Now, I think you and I have had that conversation way back when we first started rolling, is, hey, we need to do this first. Well, so it's a lot of trial and error and a lot of me messing up on my own to say, yikes, we got to get verified on Apple first, because I don't know if you're going to be the person who's going to hit some snags. And I know what those snags are as well. So it's like, okay, let's do that first. Well, now I document that. And so now that's step number 4 or whatever in my 25 steps of starting a podcast. That's higher up on the list than what many people would think about, right? And so it's just documenting what works and what doesn't, and then keeping your list straight when you go to help other people.
Yeah, and I definitely remember that, because you were like, all right, and you were telling me, hey, it's going to take us a little while to get it going, and it's okay, and man, we're going to move through and do this and do that. And I was like, all right, whatever. And we clicked on it, and I was like, hey, it just sent me an email saying I'm verified. And you're like, what?
Yeah, like that actually, okay, yeah, you were actually one of the quicker ones, to be quite honest. Like, out of, dude, I have helped over 50 people get verified on Apple, and you are the top 5 of like the fastest. I don't know what it is. The thing is, like, you can't even brag about that. It's nothing you did. It's just like the way it goes. You're like, well, I got verified. Like, you can't even do that. It was just like luck of the draw, but hey, it worked.
Well, I mean, I can.
Well, sure,
Because
you can do anything you want. It's your show. Yeah. This isn't the Adam Merino show. It's the.
That's right. And so, but I thought that was funny now that you mentioned it, because I forgot about that. It was just like, okay, yep, I've got them all. And next,
I was
like,
oh,
dang it,
cool, man. Yeah. I'd rather have that happen.
I got 13 other things we're supposed to do in the process.
Yeah. No, it worked out though. No, it worked out. You got your episodes rolling out fast. I do remember that. We still talk about that at my company, Influencer TV, that out of the people that started around the time frame that you did, that you are far and away getting your episodes out faster than everyone else. So that's a good thing. You're our star client.
I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Do I get like a 10% discount net moving forward, or
Hey, don't
but
push
I
your
never.
luck, buddy.
Hey, look, that's part of my theory is, look, if you don't ask, the answer is always
Don't
no. And
get.
so, I mean, the worst thing
Yeah,
that
don't
you'll tell
ask.
me is no.
Right. That's good.
And so, but yeah, I know some of the stuff like that I've gone through, and it's one that I tell people all the time as part of my mentoring and leadership and personal growth development is I tell people how important it is to actually have that coach, to have somebody to help you get from point A to point B. Then, because much like you were saying, had I just done that, like if I would have started on my own, I probably still wouldn't be posting episodes right now. That because I
Right.
didn't know what I needed to do, where I needed to go, and that's been huge. Because I'll tell anybody they gotta have that coach that to get them going there. Um, and
And I'll
so,
say, I'll point out that I honestly have hired my own coach as well regarding branding and things like that. Alora Lovelight, she's great. She's in New York. The link will be in the description. I'll share that with you guys. Make sure you click on that for more information because seriously, Aaron mentioned a key thing like, okay, he hired a coach. That's me. But I'm not above that. I don't know all that there is to know. And I've even hired my own coach. And so just remember that there's three things. You want to be with people who are in the trenches with you. You want to be mentoring someone and you need a mentor. So those are the three levels. You want someone who is where you want to be. So you're looking upward at like, man, this guy has or woman has accomplished XYZ. I'm trying to get there. I've only accomplished X. So you're always hitting them up. You're calling them, you're emailing them, you're meeting with them, you're becoming their best friend. You're trying to. Then there's the people in the trenches. So for you, fellow podcasters who have just gotten started in the last
mhm.
12 months, right? So join a Facebook group with them. Like ask them what their pitfalls are, ask them how they're doing so you feel a part of something, right? And then who is someone that is looking to start a podcast, Aaron, that you may be able to say, hey man, make sure you get verified on Apple because I know that can be a struggle and I know it's a little difficult. Let's get the big rocks out of the way. If you need any help, I'm here for you. Right. And so
Right.
when you can do that at those three levels, I think that's huge. And that's what I always strive to do. It's not always easy and there's different seasons of life, but I highly recommend that if you're not doing that now, that you look to start.
No, absolutely. And I think that's one of the key things that you said there that I had never really gone into was find somebody else to teach. That because I believe you don't truly know it until you can teach somebody else how to do it. And you'll learn a whole lot more while you're teaching than while you're just trying to learn.
That's why it was so fun for me coaching basketball when I used to do that. I did it for about 12 years. And I just fell in love with the sport even more because the more I taught it to someone, the more I wanted to go back and watch it when Duke and Carolina are playing, or you know what I mean, or UCLA's playing, like Michigan State versus IU, these rivalries, or IU Purdue. You want to go and watch that now because you just taught practice and you just taught a Michigan State backdoor play, and now you want to go watch Tom Izzo run it, you know? So that's with coaching sports, that just really drives it home for me as well. But yeah.
No, absolutely. And so, uh, what would you, well, now what was, because you talked a little bit about it, but what was like the biggest struggle getting going first?
Man, I guess for me, to be honest, imposter syndrome was a bigger deal than any technical, like, oh, I don't know how to talk into the mic, or I don't know how to teach someone how to start their YouTube channel, or I don't know, to be honest, like, once you learn how to do YouTube one time, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's pretty easy to set someone up if they have no clue. Like,
Right.
for me, it was, am I good enough? And then deciding, dude, I am really good enough. Like I am, after talking to so many people, like I'll be honest, I don't know if there's a podcast coach better than me. I'll just be quite honest with you. I don't, because I don't think they offer setting up your YouTube and Spotify and crafting how you're going to do your call to action and an intro and when to pause, when to really talk like this to draw people in. All those things that I coach on, I don't see anyone else doing everything. They do one or the other. And with myself doing both, I had to realize, hey, I'm pretty good at this. Don't worry. I'm very bad at other things. Trust me. But on this particular thing, guys, I don't know anyone that's better. And I'm proud of that. But the psychological aspect comes into play. You have to defeat the mindset of imposter syndrome. That was by far the biggest thing for me.
And when you say imposter syndrome, what do you mean by that?
So imposter syndrome to me is that voice, the classic, the angel and the devil, whatever, on your shoulder, and the bad guy on your shoulder says, you are an idiot. What business do you have trying to tell someone how to do something? And what makes you think that they're going to want to listen to you? And so you have to dust him off your shoulder and say, are you kidding? There are so many people that are going to want this knowledge. And you have to kind of pump yourself up. And it's hard at the beginning, but it's kind of a daily thing. You wake up and say, let's go, let's do this. Like, I am more than worth it. I am providing tremendous value for the people that want to learn the information that I have. So, but that's imposter syndrome to me. I mean, you have to deal with that, right? A little bit.
Oh, absolutely. It's always something, even in that daily job as the corporate director of admissions over 7 campuses. It's a constant battle. It's why I tell people you got to be constantly growing yourself. It doesn't matter like what industry you're in. I mean, you just said, hey, as a podcast coach, how many people are actually in the podcast coaching industry? But then, same thing with how many people are leading 7 different campuses, and you have to constantly fight that battle that I am good enough, that my team does need me. There are people that need me. My students need me. And that's why I'll always tell people you got to be diving into personal growth and development books. Because it's so important. It helps you to realize that, yes, while I am not perfect, I'm close. I'm as close as they come, right? But
Yep.
and guys, that's a joke. For those of y'all that are listening, that is a joke. I'm not there yet. But
Let's clarify. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know some people will look at that, Adam, and go, hold on, this guy thinks he's perfect. But you've got to dig into those good books. And it doesn't, and I tell people all the time, it's not Harry Potter, it's not the Hunger Games. While those are great, they reads, they're for entertainment value. If you're wanting to become better, you got to dig into, your Zig Ziglars, your Jim Rohns, the John Maxwell. That one that I'm really liking a lot right now is Tim Grover. So you got to dig into those people who are going to give you the harsh truth, but also encourage you to and challenge where your thinking is right now. Not saying that they're right for you, but they challenge your thinking.
Yeah, no question. There's never a point. I talked about my dad earlier. He in September will be 71, and he recently got called back to his church that he retired from. They're like, hey, we can't let you retire. We need you back. And he's like, well, okay. And he's always reading a book. This guy's been in his field of work for 40 years. And he's a pretty learned man, right? And he's a doctor, and he is still always reading, or he'll call me up and say, "Hey, did you know that XYZ was 1, 2, 3?" And I would say, "Yeah, yeah, you didn't know that?" "No, I just learned that. I just saw something today. I just read an article." I'm like, "Oh," like he's just always learning something, you know? And when I see him shake hands with people that he hasn't run into for a while, I just see it. And the first thing he asks that I love, and I feel like it's an old guy thing. Maybe I'm not old enough to just be doing this yet. Maybe I am, but he shakes their hand and says, "Hey, what are you learning these days?" And I always like kind of hang to see what that person's going to say, because they always take a step back. Like, "Oh, man, yeah, I'm just learning about my family and seeing my kids, or whatever the answer is." It's always good stuff, but they always hesitate for a second because they're like, "I thought I was just going to say good because he's going to say, 'How are you?'" you know? And so that's something I want to start doing. Like, "Hey, what are you learning these days?"
Oh man, like I'm gonna start using that one today. That's a good one. That's a really good one because
Isn't it?
that's that's one I always want to know is what are people learning that I need to learn, but just straight up asking it, hey, what you learning these days?
It's a great icebreaker. It breaks up the monotony of, "Hey, how's it going?" Where people just say good even when they're not doing good.
Mhm.
And to say, "What are you learning?" You can answer that if you're having a good day or a bad day, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's one of my least favorite phrases. I especially when I'm working like in business, you'll call and try to get something, or you're going to buy a new TV off of I mean, if you go to Best Buy, usually just go to bestbuy.com and press buy, but you used to had to call them, and that used to drive me
Right.
insane. Hey, I'm wanting to buy that new 72-inch TV. Hey, awesome. How are you doing today? Like, I'd be doing a lot better if you'd sell me that 72-inch TV.
Right.
Like, do you
Right.
care?
It's like, yeah,
What if I'm
totally.
having a bad day and I tell you, hey, I'm having a bad day. They don't care.
What are you
It's
supposed
just
to
something
say?
you do
Yeah. What
is
are you supposed to say to that? "Oh, well, did you still want the TV, sir?"
right. And so, I mean, that's when I train up my team on when they get the call and, they're talking, hey, Adam, you were asking about this, right? And they go, oh yeah. Hey, how are you doing today? And it's like, guys, your response is always, I'm good. How can I help you? Now,
Right.
don't
Right. Right.
ask them back because it doesn't matter.
Right.
But
Right.
that, what are you learning? That's a good question.
Solid. That's a solid one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying,
Yeah. Use
speaking of
that.
your dad, that's actually how I got into podcasting. And so I don't know that I've even told this story on here before. So my kids had actually got me into, they finally convinced me, Dad, make some TikTok videos. Now, between the golf and the motocross that we do, we travel a lot. So we're in the car a lot. So I went, all right, so as we're going through, guys, remember, you need to know this about this and whatever. And they're like, put that on TikTok. People would love to watch those videos. They would love to see it. It's good information to get out there. And I was like, I'm not doing it. It took them about a year and a half to 2 years to convince me to do it. And I finally just decided to do it. And once I got going, that your dad actually saw one of them and sent me a message and said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? You would be great. And I was like,
That's awesome.
well, no, I haven't.
Yeah. And then you jumped on a call, I think, with our CEO, and then we
Hmm.
met, and then, yeah, the rest is his story.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think it was Brian
That's
that I
awesome.
met with, and then
Yeah.
because I remember him asking me, "What do you want to do a podcast on?" I said, "I don't know. Larry told me to get on a meeting with you."
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's awesome. That's funny. Well, no, and I think it's come together really well. I mean, your what we've talked about, and we can tell your listener too, is
Hmm.
it's all about the value that you bring. And we've talked about that from day one, is I can coach you up to till the cows come home, or till you're blue in the face, or whatever analogy you like. But if you're not adding value, you can have a really good saucy intro. You can have good music. You can have fade ins and fade outs, and it can look professional. But if you're truly not adding value, it's just not going to get the traction that you want. And that's what even I want, as your guest, I want to be bringing you and the listener value. That's what I'm all about. And that's what you're all about on this show, is helping entrepreneurs, helping leaders really be the best version of themselves, and little nuggets along the way. We all need those little nuggets along the way. And that's what you're trying to do. And that's why I think your show is off to a successful start, and you want to just continue the climb and fail upwards.
Yes. Fail, or as my boy John Maxwell likes to say, failing forward. Make sure you're
Exactly.
failing forward. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. And that's a good one. I've never really said that to, even on here, is, the whole point is you want to add value. Well, it's in my outro that I hope I added value to you.
Yep.
But
100%.
it's whatever line of work you're in. I hope that the podcast does do that. It helps you to add value to others, because ultimately it's not about what do I get out of this. It's what do you get out of this? And then how do you go help somebody
Exactly.
else get something out of
That's
whatever you're doing?
a key thing, and that's one of the things that I coach on regarding a call to action. So, for example, I'll give you guys one right now. So, if you have found value so far in some of the things that I've explained about, and some of the tidbits that I've given on how I coach, then be sure to head to influencer.tv, because there we can schedule a call and I can walk you through some of the things that I've walked Aaron through, and I can share some examples of what would make sense for you there. Now there's your call to action. And what I did there was talked about value, that if so far listening to this show and we're 20 minutes in, right? And I have given maybe 2 to 3 things that you could grab onto and say, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Then, hey, if that makes sense, then let's actually schedule a one-on-one call and let's actually talk through some ideas that you may have regarding your own podcast. Or maybe you've never really thought about it, but then listening to this, you're like, actually, these two bozos make a lot of sense. Actually, maybe this is something, right? And so there's a perfect example right there. This worked twofold, because I could give a legitimate call to action, like for real, but I could also give more as an example of how we want to go about doing things on the podcast, a call to action. And so for Aaron, those of you who have been listening to Aaron, be sure to hit him up, because he can add value on a one-on-one too, because he can take, on a one-to-one basis, he can take your story and say, okay, well, have you thought about, after internalizing it, he can say, have you thought about XYZ? Or it's just good to have a second set of eyes like Aaron, who's really trying to help people, to say, okay, well, I hear that you're doing this and this. Have you thought about doing it this way? And you may say, yep, Aaron, I've already tried that. Or you may say, no, that's a good idea. I've never tried that. But either way, it's good to have that second set of eyes of someone who's really trying to help, like Aaron. So that's my call to action for Aaron.
No, I appreciate you throwing that out there. And a good one too on that, with just having that second set of eyes. Even if they have tried it, have you thought about why it did or didn't work?
That's big.
Because I don't
Yep.
think we take enough time, and I'm guilty, just myself, of thinking, why did, instead of sitting down and really trying to figure out why did this work or why did this not work, that we skip that part, and having that coach or mentor that to help you look back on it. Because I know you did that for me recently, that my YouTube shorts were going real well. And you're like, well, what do you think you're doing? And I'm like, I don't know, because I think I'm doing the exact same thing. And you're like, well, let's go look. And
Yeah,
having
it's
somebody
good to
to force you
dissect
to
that.
go back to it and say, well, let's go look exactly. Let's review every single one of them. When did you post it?
Mm-hmm.
And what was your background music? Did you have background music? Did you do this? And just forcing me to go back and look. It's not that, and it was one that I talked with, that you actually put me in connection with, was Coach Matt Toman. That we,
Oh yeah.
that's not what a coach does. The coach doesn't say, all right, Aaron, you got to do, now make it happen. They get you to go back, because the answers are within you. But having somebody to help you bring that forward is so important. and getting me to go to more of a scheduled posting. Well, Aaron, if you posted at these times and these all hit it big, let's make sure it's the time. Let's see if it's the time. And so for
Right,
the next
right.
3 weeks, post exactly at those times. Set
I
multiple
call it
reminders.
troubleshooting. I call it troubleshooting success. When you think troubleshoot, sometimes you think, oh, well, your computer's not working. Let's troubleshoot. Is it plugged in? Is it whatever? Like, let's see what's wrong. But sometimes you have to troubleshoot success. When something is going well, it is good to see and lay down exactly everything that you just said and simply say, why is this working? I'm happy, but let's figure this out. Let's quote unquote troubleshoot it. And that's what you have to do sometimes. 100%.
Yeah. And it's been good to, as I'm looking at that, I think that was 2 weeks ago now, and was able to see the last week's trends were still up, and just kind of really getting started on this week. So I hadn't even dug into or dove into what this week's results are, but it's good. I think that's what it is so important to have that coach. And I'll tell people this too. You don't need just one. So even though I've
Sure.
got Adam for podcasting, that for working as a director of admissions, I have another coach. That two separate people, they tell me a lot of the same things, but it's different what we're focusing on when we go there. And I would say even some, you may need 3 or 4. At one point I had that 4+. So it's always good to make sure you got those people that got your back.
Yep. That other set of eyes.
And having that accountability, that's the key thing, is it's somebody that's going to hold you accountable. Even though I know if I didn't do what you told me to, like he'd said, suggested, Aaron, you saw I was posting that 6, posting that 4, posting that whatever the time was.
Right.
Keep doing that. Now, let's say I don't do it. You're not going to, they just come in and like, now you listen here, man. I told you.
It's your show, man. It's your show. If you want to post it at 3 a.m. instead of 6 p.m., what am I going to do? I mean, okay.
Right. But it gives you that extra level, like, dang, I told him I was going to do this, so I need to make sure I do it.
Right. It's just like hiring someone at the gym, right? You go to work out and they say, okay, how many times you can show up? And you're like, all right, I'll do 4 days a week. Well, now you got to, because you already told someone who's holding you accountable, and you're going to feel like a jerk if you only go 2 days. So that's why people hire personal trainers at the gym, because they know they should go 4 days a week. You're not stupid, but you just need that little, and with like dietitians, like, I know I'm not supposed to eat pizza at 10 p.m., but talking to a dietitian or, someone working on your macros or how much calories you're supposed to intake and blah, 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 blah. Like, I know that certain things have way more calories than what I should be putting into my body. I'm not stupid. But when I say I'm only going to have 2,000 calories, well, all right, I'm not going to eat that cheeseburger 2 hours after lunch just because someone said there's buy one, get one free burgers. Oh, I should go and get that free burger. No, like, because I have to answer to that person that I said I was only going to have 2,000 calories. Like, that's part of the thing of why you have a podcast coach. When I say have an intro done by this time next Wednesday, you're going to want to get it done, because you're going to not want to put your tail between your legs and say, I didn't get the intro done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. A business coach, all these different coaches. That's why you do it. 100%.
And the cool thing too is that, like you said, with having the intro done, that the coach understands, all right, they can see the whole picture because you've been there. You've been exactly right where I am right now. And no, if I tell him, hey, here's all these things, and just throw it all up there for me, I'm going to be like, yeah, that's not happening today. I
Right.
can't do but you broke it into very small steps. All right,
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, we want you to do 1, 2, and 3, and that's it. When do you think you can get 1, 2, and 3 done? All right.
So I can check back on you. Like, you tell me a realistic time frame, and then I'll try and hold you to that. If life happens, just let me know. No big deal. And that's how we do it. And I learned by failing on that too. Sometimes I would give 6 steps where I should have been giving 3. And what would happen is when I'd say, give me a realistic time frame, every single time it didn't work. They never could complete those 6 steps. So that's when I said, you know what, let's just do 3. And now I'm kind of in the pocket of where I think we should be. And that's probably why you were able to knock everything out of the park, is because I learned how not to coach, again, by trial. After you do it 50 times, you learn, well, maybe let's not give them 6 steps. Maybe let's give them 3, and then they can handle that. So it's always the process, always the process.
Yeah. And it was even sometimes, I remember one week it was just 1. That, all right, I need you to get,
because it was a big one
down for your intro. Okay. So I've got to come up with words.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because it's going to take you 7 tries, and it did, by the way. Remember?
It took a lot of tries to get that going.
Yeah.
And so the funny thing, because so like yesterday too, I was talking to somebody, and they were like, "Man, I'm loving watching the podcast and doing such a great job." And they said, "How much time do you spend on that a week?" And I was like, "About 10 to 12 hours."
You don't want to
and
know.
They looked at me and they
Yeah.
they were like, "For 30 minutes?" And I said, "Yeah, about 10 to 12 hours."
Yeah. You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
But fill in the profession, like I'm former coach. That people, all they saw was the 48 minutes that we played on Friday night. They didn't see that Saturday morning we were there from really the coaches were there from 7 a.m. till about 2 p.m. That we were back at 4 p.m. on Sunday until we got the job done. And then we were there all day Monday, all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday. Had to paint the field if it was a home game on Thursdays. They didn't see the other 120 hours we put into a 48-minute game.
Yep. No, exactly.
But
exactly. That's the Steph Curry factor.
Mm-hmm.
They only see him on games shooting from half court, but they don't see, well, and social media now you kind of see. There's a ton of videos of Steph Curry working out, but people still think that's just for show. Like, no, he is really honing in on his craft to be able to do that. Like, it just doesn't happen, And again, with Steph Curry, a lot of people don't know this. Steph in high school had to take an entire summer where he sucked because he had to change his whole shot because he was so small that he couldn't get his shot up. And so he had to change his release point, which means when you do that, those that play basketball or know anything about basketball, when you shoot a certain way for a lot of time and then change it, that first month when you change it, the ball doesn't go in the hoop because you are overcompensating in so many ways that most kids in high school don't want to do that because they don't want to take the time to suck. They don't want to take that time. They'd rather just, it goes in the other way. Yeah, but you're not going to play in college then. You're not going to get your shot up. You're going to get blocked. So he changed his shot when he was already a good shooter in high school, and that propelled him to now where he is. And a lot of people don't realize that, and they don't realize the work that he put in. It doesn't matter if his dad was in the NBA or not. He still had to work hard, So that's the thing, is people don't see the hours that you've put in. I mean, the hours that I've spent on YouTube on how to podcast and the things that we use. This app that we're using to record on is Riverside FM. The amount of time I've spent with the people that work at Riverside, getting to know all the little things that we can do to help clients out and all of that. I mean, it's crazy. At 10 o'clock at night, I'll be scrolling through videos because I can't quite get to bed. And it's like, when you love it, again, that's when it becomes, when you're coaching and painting those lines on a Thursday, you did that not because you love to paint, but it's because you love that Friday feeling or that Saturday feeling of when the team rushes out there and the roar of the crowd and, you score that first touchdown or score the first point, like whatever it is, and you see all the kids celebrate. That's why you coach, not for the painting. You don't strike me as a very good painter.
Well, I mean,
Were you pretty good?
Follow those lines on the field real
I could
well,
not.
man.
My
It's
lines
easy
would
when
do
it's got the
this.
four wheels, so it can't go left or right. It just goes straight. Well, I was so proficient at that.
I'd find a way to mess it up. I'd
Oh,
find a
there were
way.
people that did. It was more of it was a lot of trial and error.
There you go, you see? But because you loved the outcome, you didn't love that right there in that moment, but you loved the outcome, and that's what was in your mind. And I think if people can focus on that while they're doing the thing that they don't enjoy, it may be that you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you're stuck in a 9 to 5 right now. The reason why you're going to succeed is because as you're at that 9 to 5, your eye's on the prize, the goal to have your own business or to run your own business or whatever it is, right? And the more people that can do that and go home and not watch Netflix, but get on YouTube on how to, whatever the thing is with what you want to do with being an entrepreneur, if it's a podcast coach, if it's running a business, if it's opening up a bagel shop, I don't care what it is, it doesn't matter. But YouTube how to run a bagel shop. Just enter that in and start looking at videos instead of watching Netflix. Take some time because you can't do it 9 to 5. That's when you're working to provide money for your family. I get that. But from 7 to 10 p.m., you should be looking at ways to, okay, how can I quit my job because I'll be ready because I want to do X, Y, Z. And there's a lot of people that don't do that. They just fall into the trap of, well, Bryan Cranston is on that show, Your Honor. It's pretty good. He plays a judge. And you know what? I've seen that show. It is good. But there's a time and place for it. And if you're trying to get somewhere and you should be watching a YouTube video or doing research, then that show on Netflix has to wait. It has to wait.
Yeah, you don't have to love the process, but you got to love the results. And so I think that's one of the things that you often see why, and I'm not going to say that why we fail as an entrepreneur or but why we as a society are failing is just what you said. We don't love the grind. We don't love where I'm working to get to over here. I mean, I want to get over here really bad, or at least I think I do. I really like the idea. I don't really want to do it. I don't want to be successful. I like the idea of winning a championship. I don't want to do what Steph Curry did, or Kobe Bryant, or Michael Jordan, or Tom Brady, or Peyton Manning, or fill in your favorite athlete, entrepreneur, whatever. How many people, everybody wants to have Bill Gates' money, but do you want to do what Bill Gates did?
Right. Put in that time and effort.
I mean, how many people want to go work their business out of their garage like Jeff Bezos?
Yeah, exactly. You should have seen my basement in 2016. Like, I mean, it wasn't
that I would love
it wasn't
to see.
good. I just it was a lot of wires because I didn't even understand how to make it easier and not have 19 plugs for different things. I could have had just 4 plugs. I didn't even know that back then. So I got like all these wires hooking into this for this microphone, or oh, that one doesn't work. I mean, it was rough. But yeah, now it's good. But that's after learning the process and embracing the grind.
Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of people need to get to is we get so, and I love video games, so I grew up playing them, but I think that's part of the detriment to where we are. And I think as you because I would fall into that Zennial, I'm not Gen X, not old enough to be Gen X, but not young enough to be millennial, because I can remember playing the old Mario games and whatnot and being very mad when you got to level 8 and they hit you with that little fireball and you had to start all the way over at level 1. Whereas now I just
exactly game over.
You can press restart and pick back up where you died. And so I think that how the video games has done that to us. You just pick right back up where you are. No, if you fail, if you drive a business into bankruptcy, you start over. You don't just say, "Oh, can I go back to where I had?"
It's not. Well, tomorrow's a new day, and we're just
no. it's all a build on that. And it's, it was great to hear you say that though, but with how it started in 2016 and got going. And so I know we're kind of getting closer to the end, but you said you had a couple of other businesses that you did. Now, what were some other things that you did and how did they go?
So in 2021, coming out of COVID, I was in business with my partner, who I'm still in business with, who owns the company influencer.tv. But coincidentally, we were in a different business at the time, and I was showing someone a house that we were going to try and flip or sell to him so he could flip, right? So I was showing this guy a property that we had under contract, and a week later, he happened to update Facebook something about he needed help with Brewhound Bus. And I messaged him and said, "What is a Brewhound Bus?" And he showed me like a website, and it's the short bus that sports team will use to transport their players, like a basketball team. It only seats like 15. Picture a white bus like that, and then a dog drinking a beer, and it says Brewhound. Brew like a beer, hound like a dog, Brewhound. And it picks you up from your house. The seats are taken out, and the seats go around like a limo. And you bring your cooler of booze, and we get you home safe. And so you can go bar hopping, you can go tailgating, you can go up to Top Golf and back, or go to a video arcade and back, whatever you want to do. And then we get you free stuff along the way. Yeah, whatever you want. We get you free appetizers at different breweries and bars, and free cover and all these types of things. And so that was super fun to just meet new people and that kind of thing. I actually got a podcast client from it, from someone that was on the bus, and we just started talking, and he's like, "What else do you do?" Blah, blah, blah. And I remember talking to him about some of the podcasts that I do. And he was like, "I've always thought about doing XYZ." And he ended up being a client for about 6 months. Like, it was just kind of funny, but that was really cool. It was already established. I would run it for him, and then he sold it to me. And so I ran it with a couple buddies, and that was really fun because it was a really cool side business to own. And then we could use it ourselves to go a golf trip, up to a casino, like whatever you want to do. We'd get our 7, 8 buddies and go, because we own the bus. That's kind of fun. So, and then I had a podcast production company where it was just me, and the editor that works on your show is the same editor that was with me. It was just me and him. I just ran it all by myself. And so I was my own boss. I was my own everything. I would fire me every day, and then the board of directors would come together, my brain, and then hire myself every day again. But I was a bad boss.
I'm glad
that's tough when you're doing everything on your own.
Fires me every day.
Yeah, man, luckily I would grovel back to myself, and I would hire myself again.
Well, yeah, because if you didn't do it, who was going to do it?
Exactly.
Plus, you worked for a very good cost. I know how I work for myself. I can't find anybody that'll do the work I do for better.
Exactly, for 60 hours. Yeah, I'm up at 10 p.m. working for a client. Yeah. So, but the one thing I'll say about being an entrepreneur, for those that that have an idea and they want to become an entrepreneur, the number one, well, not number one, but a major thing that you have to understand is that you have to be okay with it taking not only a long time to get really rolling, like up to 2 years, but also it taking a long time as far as the daily grind, that at 8:47 p.m. you will still be working on the business. You don't become an entrepreneur so that in the first 5 years you can say, well, I want to be able to go golfing at Thursday at 2 p.m. On average, you will not be doing that, because Thursday at 2 p.m., there will be accounts receivable, there will be hiring and firing, there will be the cement mixer didn't work right, or whatever the thing is, right? So you're putting out fires. I jokingly say sometimes I'm a firefighter. I just put out fires. Like, that's what I do. And people are like, wait, what? And then they get it later. Like, they're in the shower the next day, like, oh, he didn't mean literal, but that's what you have to do Thursday at 2 p.m. You can't golf. Now, once you get to that level, that's why people like to be an entrepreneur, because they see people golfing Thursday at 2 p.m. and that's what they want to do. So that's the number one thing I would say, is you have to know that. And then the other big thing is find someone else who is doing something similar and go become their best friend. Go talk to them until they say, dude, go away. I can't talk to you anymore right now. Like, that's what they should be saying to you. You need to, like, just get on them and find out what they're doing. And again, have that mentor. They'll keep it real. They'll say, hey, it's a lot of hours. Have you thought about this and this? And you can say, oh, I guess I didn't think about that. Those are huge. And if you can get past that and you're like, yep, you're still on fire, then you have a good idea then. If you get to that point and you're like, I don't know if I can do this, then it may not be for you, which is okay. But you got to figure that out and ask the right questions.
Yeah. And even when you get to that point, like, oh, can I still do this? Keep going. Because you don't know how close you are to striking that goal. You may just be like this far away, and you said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm out of here. And
right.
you were there, like you were right there. I know that was always my frustrating thing as a coach. It's like, oh, don't quit now. You're there. You're right there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And keep failing forward, failing upward, all that. Keep going.
Yeah. And as we're winding down, Adam, one that I've started asking my guest is, what's one thing I should have asked you that I didn't?
Wow. That is a really good question. One thing that you should have asked. Man, we covered a lot. Maybe I would say, what is another thing that you would want people to know that is something that they can use in their daily life to be a better version of themselves? Maybe I'll say that. And so then
would you tell somebody then?
I suppose you want me to, yeah.
Yes.
So then, yeah, well, that comes, then comes here comes the answer. Well, the one thing that I would think about is that it's something that I struggle with and that I'm trying to get better at, and that is time blocking. And that, what I mean by that is not just, okay, you record a podcast from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's not just that, but when you don't have something scheduled. So at 10 a.m. until noon, you may not have a pressing meeting that you have to get to. You may not have something that is on the docket, but in your head, there's 17 things you can do. You got to call this guy back. There's an email that you didn't get back to yet because it was 7 p.m. last night and you didn't get to it yet. There's a couple things on social media that you want to make a post or whatever. I would say on something like that, the big rocks, the one that you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, knock that out first. So from 10 to noon, just type in big rock and then small rock. And that's from 10 to noon. And then go through your list and get them done. And then also schedule 15 minutes of nothing, where you're either going to meditate or watch a comedy special real quick for 15 minutes and laugh a little bit on Netflix, Joe Coy or Jim Gaffigan, something where it's like, okay, you can feel like you're doing something for you.
Did he ask that again?
Yeah. So for me, that helps me feel accomplished by noon because I've gotten some stuff done and I wasn't just scrolling aimlessly. And I think that that's huge for our mindset to feel like, okay, the more that we feel accomplished, the easier it is from now noon to 5, that the last 5 hours of the day of like the work day, that can go smoother because your brain is celebrating all of those successes that you had. Hey, you got this done. You got this done. The dopamine goes off and says, hey, you got this. Let's keep going. Instead of saying that 10 to noon, you're like, I only got 2 things done, but I looked up 17 reels on Instagram. I feel defeated. Well, now 12 to 5 is more daunting. And so I don't want that for you. So if you can time block and get the big rocks done first and get them accomplished, that dopamine will carry you to 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whatever you need it to. So that's one thing that I would say that I would invite you to work on and encourage you to try if you're not trying it now.
Absolutely. And I love to call that priority management. Priority management. Well, yep. Adam, I appreciate you hopping on here and sharing your wealth of knowledge about podcasting and coaching. If any of my listeners want to get in touch with you, how do they reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way is going to be probably email. You can go to influencer.tv, but in the show notes is not only influencer.tv, but my email, adam@influencer.tv. That's going to be the best way, and I'd love to just jump on a call, and I can simply share what I've done for Aaron and just show you the process that I took him through if you're interested in either starting a podcast or you've kind of wondered about it. That's my favorite thing to do, is to talk to people about their ideas they have regarding podcasting.
Awesome. We thank you for getting on, and we'll definitely have to do this again. Looking forward to our next meeting.
Yeah, man. Love it. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you soon.
That wasn't Adam awesome? That we covered a lot of stuff. It was truly an amazing episode. And one of the things that as we went through and talked about it, that Adam talked about trusting the process. And as you're learning and growing, trusting that when you fail, that you will fail forward. That because you truly only fail if you don't learn. And he really talked about enjoying that grind as you're getting going in whatever it is that you decide you want to move forward and pursue. We also talked about the importance of having a coach and having a mentor, and how if you really want to move and level up, you got to have a coach and mentor. I thought it was really cool to know that as Adam is my coach and mentor for podcasting, he also has a coach and a mentor for podcasting, looking to learn and grow as he goes along. And then kind of the last real thing that we talked about was priority management and making sure that you set and block out times that in your schedule for your big blocks. Super, super important that you do that and make it a priority to put the big things first. And so guys, that if at any point in time that you're looking to work on your personal development, working on your leadership, look, hit me up. I would love to be able to help you out with that process. Again, all of my contact information is listed below in the description. And as we go from here, remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you gotta get started to be great. So in the meantime, keep leading, keep innovating, keep learning, keep staying connected, and I will see you on the next episode of the Clark Connection Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Clark Connection Podcast, where my goal is to add value to you. Make sure you like and follow the show. You can also connect with me via my website, coachaclark.com, or on all socials at coach_A_Clark. The links are in the description. Huge thanks to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metal Associates, Bobby at A Comfy Quest LLC, and Andrew at Automate Integrate Professional Services. We look forward to bringing you more great content. See you next week.